chapter 17. Terry says that he's been to his last graduation. Actually, I want to make a graduation speech today, so I'll add. Really like to talk to those who have graduated from high school and or college, but also to everybody else who is young, either young in body, young in mind, young in heart. And if we talk about what I would see as being a graduation speech, if you will, it may be a little different in my approach than you would hear from somebody who is basically going to get up and give you a rah-rah speech about how wonderful life will be and all the great things ahead of you. I believe all that. But if you really want to be facing life as it is, you don't anticipate that it's all going to be like you want it to be. That there will be obstacles, there will be difficulties, there will be times when you will feel on top of the world because it's like everything is as you wish and God is blessing you beyond measure. Then will come those other times when things will not be as you wish. As a matter of fact, you'll be on your knees, sometimes on your face before God, asking, why, oh Lord, why? I want to start with just one verse in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 33. I'll set the stage in just a moment, but just look at this verse. And Saul, who is the king, by the way, said to David, who at this point is about 15 years old. And Saul said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you're about a youth, and he's been a man of war from his youth. Let me just explain. You know the story. It won't take but a minute to set it up. The Philistines are battling the Israelis. They have lined up on either side of this valley. And as they get ready to march into battle, and back then the battle was pretty direct and up close because though they had their archers who could basically be their artillery, most of the fighting was done hand-to-hand, face-to-face with swords and spears and with their shields and so forth and so on. And so what would happen is that the armies would line up on either ridge. They were going to fight in the valley below, and they would try to get themselves ready to battle by raising their adrenaline, by screaming and yelling their war cries. And as they did so, from the Philistine side walks out a mercenary. He's not a Philistine. He's been hired by the Philistines. He's a soldier who fights for money. He walks into the field. You may remember his name is Goliath. Goliath is called a giant because he was. The Bible says he was 9 feet and 6 inches tall. The anthropologists tell us that the average Jewish male of that day was about 5'3". So this guy's 2 Jews high. He walks out into that valley, this huge man, and he wasn't a thin rail sort of guy. So you could be tall and be very thin. He was just a massive fella. As a matter of fact, his chest plate weighed 125 pounds, which would be as much as a Jewish shoulder would weigh. And that's on his breastplate. The head of his spear is extremely heavy, so forth and so on. And he walks into the field, into that valley, and he says, look, let's be reasonable about this. Rather than having army come against army, I'll be the champion for the Philistines. You choose the champion on your side. Send him down to battle me. And whoever happens to win, that'll be the victor. Now, you can imagine these guys who are looking at somebody almost twice their height, who is massively larger than they are, and they're looking at him and they're thinking, nobody on earth can do this. And they would naturally look for the guy on their side who was the biggest guy. That would be King Saul. The Bible says he was a head and shoulder taller than the average Jewish male. He was a tall man for that culture. Let's say he's 6'3". Well, he's still considerably shorter than that giant. And so they look for the biggest man on their side, who was a warrior. Saul was a pretty good man in battle. And they look for him, and he's not to be found. What he is in his tent, planning, making strategies, getting ready for the battle that he himself will not fight. I think, by the way, if you're going to face life, that's one thing you need to understand is that sometimes the people that you expect to be your leader, as a matter of fact, they have actually achieved positions of leadership. And that you would anticipate that with their courage, they would lead you into the battle, that you would follow them. Sometimes the people who should be fighting have fought so long and so hard. And they finally come up against another foe that they just don't have the strength to fight today. And so rather than they're leading you into battle, what you'll discover is they're going to be somewhere off planning what will happen, planning what could happen, even planning what should happen, but not fighting. And if you're going to face this world in a realistic way, understand that your leaders will sometimes fail you. Not necessarily because they're bad men. Oh, by the way, I think Saul was a bad man. But not necessarily because they're bad men, but because sometimes they just don't have the strength today to go on. So, this goes on every day, twice a day, 40 days. 40 days in a row, twice a day, this man walks into the valley when they start their battle cries. You can imagine after 40 days, the battle cry is not screaming and blood curdling. It's like, because they know they're not going to go down there and fight that thing. And I guess they're waiting thinking, well, he's very big. Maybe his cholesterol's high. Maybe he'll die of a heart attack. Or maybe he'll trip and fall and break his neck. Maybe, but they don't fight him. And the king, rather than going into battle, offers a tremendous bounty for whoever will. He says, whoever kills the giant will get a fortune, tax-free, and can marry my daughter. And so these men hear all of that. Nothing goes on. And this 15-year-old boy, not quite old enough for the army yet, he's back home. He's taking care of the sheep. His father's name is Jesse. Jesse basically puts together a care package for the soldiers in battle because David's brothers, who are older than he, are there on that battle line doing those screams every day. And so Jesse puts together this care package and says to David, take this to your brothers. And as he gets nearby, he hears them doing their battle cries, getting ready for battle. He's a 15-year-old boy. He hears somebody yell, fight. You know what he's going to do. He drops what he has and he runs to see the fight. That's what I would do when I were 15. As a matter of fact, that's probably what I would do now, but I would walk. And so he goes and he sees this giant and he's indignant and basically says, why doesn't somebody kill that giant? The others were indignant. Do what? Somebody should go down there and kill that giant. And they were furious. And so they attacked him, not physically, but emotionally through their verbiage. They came at him saying, well, you're a kid. And then they start ridiculing him. Well, wait a minute, aren't you supposed to be taking care of those sheep out in the desert? If that's where you're supposed to be, what are you doing here? Well, as a matter of fact, they even put that down. They said those few sheep out in the desert, doing everything they can to denigrate him, to make him believe that he does not have any value whatsoever. That's another thing you need to learn if you're going to face life. And that is that you will see things that need to be done. And sometimes the frustration of the young has to do with the fact that you see it. You know it needs to happen. You know that somebody should charge in there and fight that enemy, whatever that enemy might be. And when you speak up, not only will you hear every excuse in the world from those who should be fighting the battle as to why they're not, but you will find that they will actually attack you. They'll call you names. They'll insult your intelligence. They will question your integrity. Oh, including questioning your motives. So don't think that just because you know the right thing to do that other people are going to back you when you do it. Oh, and also understand this, that sometimes the people who will be the cruelest to you, when you know what needs to be done and you choose to do it, not only will it just be the people around you, but sometimes it will be the people that are the very closest to you, the people that you think that you can count on, the people that you think that you can trust, which is why it was his brothers. Now, we could probably try to understand their motivation. It does not tell us what their motivation was per se, but we just have to interpret it. My guess is that their interpretation, or their motivation, I should say, is this. They knew they should go down there and battle that giant. They knew it should occur, but they themselves did not have the courage to do it. And so when this boy questioned why nobody was, they felt as if they were being impugned in some fashion. By David saying somebody should go down there and kill that giant, and these guys are the soldiers. They're the trained warriors. One of them should have been down there trying it, but they're not doing it. And so they felt that they were somehow attacked themselves. By saying that should happen, and we know that we're not doing it, you're attacking us. And so rather than standing up and doing what they should do, they attacked the boy. That's another part of life you need to understand. That sometimes the people, as I've just said, who you think would be your supporters are definitely on your side, will be the first people that turn against you. When they feel that you somehow are pushing them to do the things that they themselves are not ready to do. When I was a very young minister, I did not graduate with John. Actually, it took me a lot longer than that to graduate. We were in school probably about as long, but it just took me a lot longer to finally get through. I remember the that I was a Bible major. We were living in North Augusta, South Carolina. The minister at the church there was a guy named Charles Mullins, who later came over to Murfreesboro and was a minister in Murfreesboro for many, many years after that. Charles was the one who had baptized me. And I recall when I wrote back to him from what was then Alabama Christian College, which is today Faulkner University, and told him I decided to become a Bible major, I was thinking that he would be just so encouraged because he was the minister who had actually baptized me into Christ. Instead, I got this letter back asking, what was I thinking? Have you really processed all of this? Do you really want to do that? And then in this letter he wrote me, and back then, by the way, you know, if you didn't handwrite it, you typed it. There was no word processor, no computer. I don't remember if he had handwritten it or typed it. He probably typed it. But it took him a while to do that on some old typewriter. And it came to me, and it was pages and pages long, and it was telling me all the reasons I should not. This was a minister telling a young man who said, I want to be a minister, all the reasons why you should not pursue this because of all the things that are going to happen if you do. I remember one of the things he said is this, and if you do, when you go to a church, the people who embrace you the first, no, don't hear that as an attack here, I'm quoting this guy. He said, the people that will embrace you first will be the first that will